today I'm here to show you tons of cards. These cards are cards that I've made over the last probably 15 years since I started making cards, which was in 2008. And the reason that I'm at this point where I want to show you all these cards is because some of you may have noticed that there was a point in time where I was making a lot of videos and then I just kind of stopped doing that. And the reason for that was because a year ago I moved. And as some of you may realize, because you've moved, in the time leading up to moving, I had my entire house packed up, which included my card making supplies, and I wasn't really feeling very creative and didn't have the equipment or space or desire to make videos. And so now I'm in my new house as of a year ago, and I've finally unpacked everything, and I have been finding cards everywhere. And so I just thought, you know what, why don't I just get all these cards together and talk a little bit about my card making journey over the last 15 years. And of course, I've given some of my cards away and I've sold a bunch of cards at craft sales, but I still have probably 100 to 150 cards here. Now, I'm not going to talk this much all through the video. I just want to talk a little bit at the beginning about the very first cards I ever made, just because they're special and I think there's some reason to talk about them. But after that, I'll just start going through them quickly, and hopefully this video won't be hours long, although it probably could be because I have a lot to say about cards, but I'll try to make it brief. Okay, so this card is probably the oldest card I have in my possession that I've ever made, and this dates back to Christmas of 2009. And I specifically remember this card because at the time, my then boyfriend agreed to help me make Christmas cards. I don't know why, but I just wanted to share the card. Card making was new to me, and I thought it would be a fun activity for us to do. And this was the Christmas card I made that year, or we made. And what I think is special about these older cards is that I didn't have hardly any card making supplies at that point in time. Now, this card wasn't made with any special dies. I don't think I even owned a set of dies at that time. What I used was just corner rounders. As you can see, everything is rounded. The corners of the card are rounded. The squares that are on the card, this was a stamp. These are some jewels I probably got at the dollar store. This was Martha Stewart paper, I remember, from a paper pad that I absolutely loved. It was foiled mint colored paper. And this was an old Amy Butler paper. Anyway, all I'm trying to say here is that I love this card. It's the oldest one I ever have. I'll probably always have it. I should put it somewhere up in my craft room, just as an example of why you don't need a lot of card making supplies. A corner rounder, some pretty paper, and some dollar store gems. I'm not saying this is the best card I've ever made, but what I would like to point out is that before you start your card making journey, you don't know necessarily what everybody else is doing. I had some magazines at the time that I was looking through, and I knew how to make a card. I knew that you were supposed to score it and fold a piece of cardstock in half, and that's, I didn't know much more than that, and I didn't have a lot of supplies. So I won't ramble on too long about this, but I'm just saying sometimes we have to remember that we don't need all the stuff. That's all I want to say. Now, this is another very old card of mine, and I was into collage at the time. And as you can see, I entitled this Cool Vintage Lamp, and I guess I thought this looked like a lamp. I don't know, I was just playing around with collage. You can see my cutting isn't even very good here. And I just thought that this was another good example of, I'm not using any card making supplies, quote unquote, per se here. I'm just cutting up stuff and making a card out of it. So I just wanted to show you that that's something that I don't do anymore, which is kind of sad. Now this one, I remember I found out that there was something called a gatefold card at some point around 2009, 2010, and I made one. And once again, I think I had a square punch that I was using. I had probably at this point bought a square punch, but I mean, I would never make a card like this now. It's kind of unusual. Whoops, it's kind of weird, you know. It's just like what I'm trying to point out here is that the cards I used to make are so different from the cards I make now. Also around that time, I got this idea to take close-ups of my video games that I had when I was a kid. Don't ask me why, it was just a phase I was going through, and I was taking these close-ups and putting them on a card. And I had an Etsy store back, I started in 2008, and I remember I was selling these in my Etsy store, and I just thought this was a good idea. I mean, now it just seems kind of ridiculous, but back then, I mean, it was 15 years ago, it seemed like a great idea for a card. Here's another one I made sometime around 2010, I think it was. And once again, like I just put some stuff, this was a Christmas card. The inside's actually nicer than the front. I used a piece of felt. This was a die. I think I had bought this die somewhere. And I just want to show you that it's kind of odd looking now compared to the cards I make now. Like, what is this exactly? Why is there a stick here? I have no idea, but it was just the way my brain was working back then when I didn't have much to draw upon. I hadn't seen thousands of cards that other people had made. I was just kind of doing my own thing at the time. Around 2007, I think, I went to New York City and I took this picture of Bloomingdale's, the outside of Bloomingdale's, and I printed it on cardstock, and I thought that made a nice card. You know, I was just making cards out of stuff that I had. I wasn't buying all the dies or doing all the fancy things. Somewhere I got this idea, or I must have been in a magazine or something, on how to make a gift card enclosure. So, you know, I had a punch that looked like this, and I made this, I mean, I never used it. I think I was just, you know, trying out the example of like, ooh, how do you make a gift card enclosure? So that's something I was doing around that time. Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk a little bit here, and then after that I'm going to go much quicker, I promise. Around this time, this was, again, 2009, 2010, these are some of my favorite cards that I've ever made, and what I think is kind of interesting and also sad at the same time is that these cards, I can probably not, I'm thinking I won't be able to go back to making cards like this because I don't think this way anymore. Like now I have preconceived notions about how a proper card is made. You know, I feel like you have to make, you have to create layers. I mean, there's layers on this card, but matting, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Like a proper card, quote unquote, is matted. You know, you have your base layer, and then you use a set of stacked dies to mat with. Whereas back here, in 2010, I didn't care about matting. It didn't bother me at all to not mat. As a matter of fact, you can see I used a piece of vellum here, and I used that runner tape that has dots, not actual, you can actually see it right through the vellum. But I had these die cuts that I'd bought at my local craft store, and I was using, this was a deck of cards that was intended for children. It was a game, I think, and I was just using the card from the game. Now, I would never do something like this now. And so it's just interesting that when, before you are exposed to external influences, let's say, you're using your own creativity probably more than when you're seeing other people doing stuff all the time, because you're influenced by those people, right? So I almost wish that I could go back to this point in my card making days, because I didn't have any, you know, catchy stamps to put on a card. So I used my typewriter, and I put everything's going to be just, and then I used these little stickers to be fine, and then I used another typewriter to type out A-OK, and you know, this weird little shape down here and this that I cut by hand, I'd never do that now. So it's kind of sad that I've only got a few cards from this era. Here's another one that I absolutely love. The first die I ever bought was from Spellbinders, and it was this pinking circles die, I guess. I don't know the exact name of it. But once again, I used these children's playing cards, and I didn't have a circle die, and I don't know if you can tell, but the circle is not perfectly cut. I must have traced it and then cut it out by hand, because I can see that it's not a perfectly cut circle, and there's no there's no perfect little dots around the circle because I cut it by hand. And I used washi tape as a background. I just thought, hey, why don't I use some washi tape as a background, and it matches, and it's just. And then another thing I did here that I would never do now is that I don't know if you can see, but I wanted to create like a frame for the card. So I had an idea where I would just cut out a strip and then sort of score it until it was 3D. I don't know if you can see that. And I mean, that's just something I would never do right now. It's just kind of, weird. And, here again, I don't even know who would send this card, what occasion this would be for or what, but I just wanted to make a card, and I made a card. Like nowadays I'd be thinking, is this a happy birthday card I'm making? Is it a miss you card? Is this for Valentine's Day? Back then, I didn't care. I was just putting something that I thought looked nice on a card. I put this lovely ribbon, and back then flowers were in, so I put some flowers, and brads were in. So I don't know if you can see, but those are some, they're actually not even brads. They're, well, they're the kind of brads that don't have the fold out thing at the back. They're the ones that you had to use can't think of the name of that tool right now, but it was like a brad, but it wasn't a brad. I can't think of the name. Maybe you can put it in the comments so I can remember. But anyway, this was again from that era. And this one, same thing. This was a sewing pattern, a girl on a sewing pattern. I cut out her feet, and I had this idea in my head that I thought was funny. And once again, I used my typewriter to type here. I almost went through the roof when I heard the news. And then it looks like she's, either jumping for joy or going through the roof. Literally, it's just, I was just working with what I had. I had this die cut that I'd bought from my local scrapbook store, and I was using way more of my creativity, I think, back then than I am now. Here's another one from that era. Just putting stuff on a card, moving it around so I thought it looked nice. It's kind of jumbled now. It's more like a collage, than any card out. Now I feel like I would have to have a central focal point. Whereas this card, there's kind of a lot to look at here. I don't know where to look first. It's just a different, and I kind of wish I could go back to this, but this, I don't think I ever can. I know I've said that before. It's just kind of, it makes me sad when I think about it. This is another sewing. I sell sewing patterns on Etsy, so I have a lot of envelopes left over sometimes when there aren't any, or there are missing pattern pieces. So I just keep the envelope, and then I cut out the girl, and I just made this kooky card. Okay, so that was like the very beginning of my card making days. Now I'll move a little quicker. About 2013, I think it was, I started subscribing to Studio Calico kits. They had a card making kit, and I got really involved with Studio Calico, and I was there for probably 5 years, like monthly. I was really into their message board, and I learned so much from other crafters there. And so I made a ton of cards because they were always having challenges, and I was really motivated to make cards back then. So this next batch of cards are all made with Studio Calico products. Don't know what I was intending for this. It just, once again, I just liked the look of this card, or maybe it was a challenge that week. This one is just it's like a 2-layer card, just some simple stamping. This one looks like there's a piece of acetate there. I did a little bit of repeat stamping there, just very simple cards. This was a card kit. I remember it had pumpkins in it. This one was one of those Project Life cards that I used. I used a washi tape background. This one, for some reason at some point, hair clips were being used in card making. I don't know why, but anyway, I used it there. This was from a card kit where there was this, sorry, this is overdue. If you're looking for any of these stamps, you could probably go to eBay and search for Studio Calico stamps, because they would be long out of print, but they might be still hanging around, you never know. Once again, that was just like the other one. You know, just very simple cards back then. This was a piece of plastic or acetate, or not acetate, but the words escape me, but you know, it was a plastic piece that we got in a kit, and I just made a card out of it. This was a really cute stamp, I remember, that came in a card kit. I made a lot of these stamps with bees on them, I remember, and I got the idea somewhere to reverse round the corners, you know, like there's a punch for this. It's a chomper, a corner chomper, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and it cuts this indent. And I was doing that for quite a while. There's another one of those. Oh, that one says merci. Another stamp from Studio Calico. Sorry about the glare on some of these. Some of these I've already packaged to bring to card or craft fairs. This is just a silly card. This one I was doing some smushing, watercolor smushing, I guess you would call it. This one I remember distinctly I got when I started buying my Nuvo drops, and I was just so excited, and I had this idea in my head to make a line of Nuvo drops and use this stamp that we got in a Studio Calico card kit. Then I remember they had this paper in a kit, and I thought it would be interesting to use because you can sort of check off what it is. Like, you know, it's saying, like, say if somebody breaks up with someone, you could say, congrats, you did it, it was worth it, and then, you know, explain on the inside. So it's kind of a card that could go either way. There it is again. I think I was trying to be creative here. Like, we had this card kit and they were urging us to be creative with it. So I made like a hill out of these lemon pieces. This one, I remember when I started my blog, this was the very first card that I put on my blog. And I remember thinking that this was really great. Looking at it now, I just think, oh, well, I guess it's okay. But, you know, back then, I don't remember when I started my blog, but I just remember thinking that this was really catchy looking or something. I don't know. This one was a die we got in a kit. So, you know, it's just kind of I was just trying to use that die, I guess. This one was a card kit. Kind of interesting. This one, I guess it must have been a stamp that I just cut and repeated over and over again. And around that time, I was really interested in creating a border with pen marks. So I was sort of doing that to all my cards, just creating this little border. Because once again, I didn't have, at this point, I don't think I owned any nesting dies. So I was just kind of trying to emphasize the border. I think this one I may have copied from somebody at Studio Calico. There's some washi tape there in the background. This one was made with washi tape. I had just bought a die that cut a diamond. And this was one of the first YouTube videos I ever did. And I think I deleted it because my video skills back then were so terrible that it was embarrassing. I may have just put it on private so that you can't see it anymore. Like, it was just too embarrassing. But anyway, I really liked the card when it was finished. I just, you know, put washi tape on a piece of cardstock and then cut it out with a diamond-shaped thing. And then I stamped some letters and fussy cut them. This one again, using washi tape. Back then, you know, we were using washi tape a lot because washi tape was sort of a new thing and everybody was using it. Once again, I don't use washi tape anymore. Why not? Look at how cute that is. Again, this is washi tape. The whole background is just, I wish this was not, like, it's so shiny you can't tell, but that's just a washi tape background. And again, I was using my pinking. This is another really old one. I was using my pinking dies. This one was a stamp, and I remember I had some paper that looked like wood, so I made some envelopes out of it. I don't know what I was doing here. Again, that's a piece of washi tape. Just another, I remember these were rub-ons, I think, these birds, so I just wanted to use them. And sequins. Sequins were a thing back then. Now this one, I remember there was a team member, design team member for Studio Calico, and her name was Aga. And I was copying her card here. I thought it was so cool. She made these kind of like futuristic looking, mod looking flowers, and I was trying to copy her doing that. And then we got a die in one of our kits to make a whale, and I had this vintage fabric that I thought was really cute, and so I made this this whale card. Then I got a stamp set with a cool font, and I thought, why don't I just make a one-layer card? And I don't know why, but I used this expression, and I thought it was cool. This one was using, I used to get the Memory Keeper kit, or the, I forget what it's called now, but it's a kit that you can use with your Project Life album, and it gives you these little chipboard sayings, and so I just made this card. This is a sympathy card. I think I may have copied that from someone. I can't remember now. This is just a one-layer card with some ink smooshing, and I think I just wrote in the sentiment here, which is, again, something I would never do now. This one is very similar, except it's a stamped sentiment. This one, I remember I had little cubes of ink and I just dragged them across. I was just playing with that technique. This one I made for my mother's birthday and never gave it to her because that's her birthday. Again, ink smooshing, and I guess I was playing around with heat embossing. This was a pretty one, but once again, I wouldn't make cards like this now. I don't think, that are just so plain. I would probably take that and mat that layer. I really like this stamp set that came with one of the kits with the birds on it. Here's some more washi tape. There's some stamping in the background, and those are little strips of washi tape that we got. I think they were made by Basic Gray. Just a cute little card, just one layer stamping. Now, this was a Simon Says card kit, I think. Simon Says stamp card kit, and I made some cards from this. This was a nice shiny cardstock. I really like this card kit. I gave away most of the cards, but this was probably, look at that nice shiny foil cardstock. This was probably around 2011, I think. This may have been before Studio Calico. This was a shaker card, but it was one of the first shaker cards I ever made, and as you can see, all my shaker bits stuck in the side. I had this die that cut out this sort of silhouette, and I thought I was doing a great job cutting it out of this painted background that I had, but then the shaker bits didn't shake. And so this was one of my first lessons in card making, that when you make a shaker card, make sure that you use a powder tool to go around the edge of the foam tape that you're using, so that the bits don't stick to the edge of the foam tape, which I'm pretty sure is what happened here. There, see, it shakes a little bit, but you have to really force it. I'm not keen on shaker cards, only because I've had so much trouble making them. I'm just not very good at doing it, I don't think. Again, this was just sort of a piece of, cardstock that I was playing around with some paint, and then I just made it into a card, something I probably wouldn't do now. Here's another one, same idea. This one, I remember thinking I was really innovative at the time. It's a gift card holder. I don't really want to open it because just whatever, but it's supposed to be a globe, and then you pull the base of the globe out, and there's a place in the base to hide your gift card. And I remember thinking that I was like, wow, look at how creative I am. I've made this interesting card. And also you could stand it up. You can stand the base up so that it'll stand up on somebody's desk. This one, I don't know, I think I was just playing around with some paint maybe. I think I drew these leaves or something, I don't know. Those are acetate. This one, I think I just cut out from some paper. Like this was the actual piece. It looks like I collaged it, but it was just a piece of paper that I cut out something and just layered it onto another piece of paper. Oh, now this one, this is out of order. This is, again, one of the very first cards I ever made. I just drew this kind of weird cityscape and put it on a card. And I don't know why, but I folded it so that it looked like this. But once again, this is probably from 2007. It's so old. I wish I'd put dates on some of these. At some point, I was really interested in using old maps as the front of cards, so I just would cut them apart and put them on a card. This was a Studio Calico stamp set, and I used a doily as the background, probably something I, again, wouldn't do now. Here's some more of those little, I love that little bear. He's just so cute. You know, it's just a series of cards that I made, and I found this paper that kind of looked woodsy, I guess. Once again, Studio Calico kit. I made a lot of cards during the Studio Calico years because I was always so inspired, you know. That's why I really got into card kits, like monthly card kits, because I love to see what everybody else was doing, and then I would do the same thing. This is, again, you know, I was doing these little hash marks along the border of my cards. That was like a piece of wood that we got. This was just some, you know, I don't know what I was doing there. I was using watercolors, I guess. There was a letterpress kit that we could get, and I remember I letterpressed some cardstock, and this is just a very simple card. I was just using, this is again letterpress. You probably can't tell because it's in a package, but it's like embossed. The ink is embossed into there's texture. If you feel it, you can feel the texture. This one, I think that's collage. I collaged some papers together. This one, I remember this was a piece of paper that I'd used to rub my brush off on, and then I thought it looked like trees, so I just made this birthday card. I think we've seen that card already. I must have made 2 of them. I don't know. I guess I think I was copying someone with this card. I made a whole bunch of these little cards because they were so easy. I was going to a craft fair, and when I go to a craft fair, I like to have different dollar value ranges of cards. So I like to have like $1 cards, which is what this was. And I like to have, you know, like more expensive layered cards, just so that if somebody wants a card but they can't, you know, they don't really want to spend, because let's face it, there are people who just want a card, you know, they don't really want to spend $10 on a card, and I totally appreciate that, because I was that person before I started making cards, you know. And then there are some people that do appreciate a more layered card that you can tell somebody's put more work into, and neither one is right or wrong. It's just different people's interests, you know what I mean? This one, again, this is washi tape that was a chevron that I kind of layered together. This one was a mask. I put, you know, a mask down, and sprays were in back then, so I sprayed over it. This is, I think I got the idea to draw this, like, these lines to make it look like notebook paper. That one, it kind of looks like quilting, these cards. Okay, so this one, I remember this was a really cute stamp. It was the stamp of a house, and then they had all these little people that you could put, or animals that you could put in the windows. Just playing around with watercolor there. Again, you can see my hatching on the edges of the card. A lot of these I would make in duplicate or triplicate because I knew I would be going to craft fairs with them. Here's more of the stamps from that cute card. I should pull that cone out. It was so cute. Like there's a little bird stamp, and you know, the foliage stamps. It's cute because it makes a little building. This one I think I copied from somebody. This one was a shaker card that I had more luck with. I was trying my hand at shakers again, and this one actually worked. This one, I think I was using up scraps. This one, I remember before we had like background dyes, I used this tiny little heart shape, and as you can see, it's not perfectly even. That's because I 5 times, so I cut it 25 separate times through. I went 25 times through my die cutting machine with this because I wanted this overall look. This is back in the day before we had like a plate that you could just put on a piece of cardstock and cut it that way. This is out of order too. This is one of the very first ones. Sorry, this is back from like, remember I showed you those ones with the vellum that where you could see the lines of the adhesive. And the flowers, that's another clue that this is a very old card. And this, I remember this die came from my original Cricut machine. The green Cricut. No, is that what it was called? The green Cuttlebug, the Cuttlebug machine. Somebody bought me one for Christmas, and I remember this postage die came in it. Like, again, I would never make something like this now. It's just really interesting to look at. Okay, we're about halfway done, believe it or not. Okay, so this is another one I made during my time with Studio Calico, let's say, around that time. I just have to make another pile because these are all going to fall over here. This one, I was into doilies at that time, I guess. This one is cute. This was a really cute little stamp with the couple that would hold hands. I think I gave that one away or sold it or something. This one, I remember I made this is jumping forward a little bit, I think. This was a Vicky Bouton stamp, and I had some foam, and I thought it would be fun I think I made a video on this. Oh, no, you know what? I think the video was this. I think it was both of these cards. You look back, there might be, I think there's a video, and I do remember this one. I love this this leafy vine that Vicky Bouton put out. Now this is around the time that I was getting into Tim Holtz. It was probably around 20. I don't remember. I shouldn't say because I don't remember when it was. But he has a background die that cuts out all these stars, and this is his tape, and this is obviously one of his paper dolls. And I colored the skirt, and I thought that was really cute. This one is using. This is embossing, and it's his glazes. So this must be jumping forward a little bit, but you can get a ball roller for embossing fluid. Like instead of using an embossing pad, you can get a brush, and you can get a roller. I can't exactly remember the company's name that puts them out, but I used the roller to just roll on a strip of embossing ink, and then I put, different colors of Tim's glazes on there, and then I colored the paper dolls, and I think this is a Tim adornment too. I don't remember how I made this. I think it was masking off with washi tape and then ink blending, but this color, I don't know what color ink that was. Okay, this is getting into Paper Pumpkin, so that's a little bit later on. Okay, so this was, I said I made a lot of those bee cards. This is another one, just very, once again, cutting out circles and gluing them on cards, something I probably wouldn't do now. I'd use a punch or I'd use a die. There's a very simple thanks card. This one I thought was, I made like a grid. And once again, I don't know who you would give this card to. I guess it would be up to the person giving it. I was just making cards back then, We would get these like wood pieces, and I would think of, again, this is not a card I would make now. I know I've said that a zillion times, but it's just interesting to me because we would have got a piece of netting in our kit, and I wanted to use the netting. Like nowadays, that's what I like about kits, is that you're not forced, but you're encouraged to use what's in the kit. So it's, you're using things that you probably wouldn't think to use. Would I put these two things together now? No, but these papers were all in the kit. These things were all in one kit, and so I put them together, There's another one of those sweet cards, another bee card. Around this time, I remember a friend of mine said, why don't you try making a Pac-Man card? I think that's what it was, or I decided I was going to make a Pac-Man card, and my friend said, yeah, you should do it. And so I just came up with this idea to make a Pac-Man card, and this is what I came up with. Kind of weird. Okay, then I think before I got into Stampin' Up. Here's another shaker card. I was getting a little bit better at shaker cards. This was an Allie Edwards house die that I just repeat stamped and then made a little shaker. And I used my vintage Dymo labeler to make the sentiment. This card, I remember this technique was Tina Zink. She is a Stampin' Up demonstrator. She was my upline when I was in Stampin' Up. And she showed this technique on her channel. And what you do is that you drag an embossing ink pad across a piece of paper, and then I think you drag it really lightly. You check out her channel for this video, this technique video. But I think what you do is you drag it really lightly, and then you just sprinkle on clear embossing powder, and it makes it look like there's frost on the card. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it really does look like cold winter frost. Oh, there's a blank card that I never finished. Just playing around with some stuff in a kit probably. Okay, so here's a Stampin' Up set. It involved perfume and high heels, I remember, so I was making a lot of cards with high heels and perfume. Life is short by the shoes. There's another one. I like these cards. They're really pretty. If you haven't noticed, I really like square 6x6 cards. I find that square 6x, they're my favorite card to make. I just find that they're substantial feeling and looking, and I guess I prefer a square to design with. I know in scrapbooking I prefer a rectangle, like 9x12, so I'm not sure why, but in card making I prefer a square. I like big squares. Here's another one. It was a Happy Mother's Day card. I was just playing around with that stamp set. Okay, this one. Okay, there's another one I never finished. That one is a repeat of something. Oh, here it is. Kelly Perky came out with this alphabet stamp, and I don't know why, but this expression was just going around in my head, and I thought that would look neat on a card, so I made a whole bunch of them, and then I never finished them. I guess I'll just... It's fun to look through these, because now I can just finish them. I could put, like, a rainbow. I could put something that made this phrase seem relevant. You know, back then, I don't know. I was just going with what I was feeling at the time. This is a Happy New Home card. I cut that out from a crate paper piece of paper. And again, I did a border on there because I didn't have dies. I was improvising. Here's a cute one. That is a really old, can't think of the company name right now. But it was a really cute set of owls. If you've been in the card making or scrapbooking realm for a long time, you probably remember this. This stamp set, everybody seemed to have it at the time. I made this card much later, but I've never gotten rid of that stamp set because I thought it was so cute. Once again, I probably had these die cuts and I was just kind of making a card. This one, I started making rocket cards, and I had this rocket card stamp, or rocket stamp from a Studio Calico kit, and then I made a whole bunch of them, which I didn't finish, as you can see. Oh, there's the original one. There's the one that I was going to make a whole bunch of. I guess I didn't finish the bottom. I had intended to put Let's Make Up, but I guess I didn't leave myself room. Maybe that's why I never finished them. I don't know. Too long ago, I can't remember now. This one is a, do you remember back in the day, Hambly? There's that owl again. The company Hambly sold these overlays, or I can never remember the correct name for things, but it's a piece of plastic that, you know, it just gives a different, when you're holding a card, it's kind of neat to have something shiny on it like that. You know, in an upcoming video that I haven't made yet, I have an idea to make a video about how to make your cards, how to kind of upgrade your cards from, like, say, like if you want to, from a flat one layer card to something more ritzy looking. This is also an older card. This, I remember I really worked at this background, and I used a Tim Holtz stencil and a lot of his ink. And then this skull was a rub-on from Michaels that I got, and I thought that looked pretty neat. This one is, I remember, this is a Stampin' Up set, and this was a punch that I still have. There's an old Studio Calico card. Okay, we're into the last third here. All right, now this is This is, I believe, now we're getting into Paper Pumpkin era or Stampin' Up era. When I started getting the Paper Pumpkin kits, that was a Thanksgiving kit. This was a stamp from, I'm a sucker for typewriters. I absolutely love typewriters. I have a typewriter collection. I think I have about 15 to 20 of them. And so I buy almost every typewriter stamp I can buy. And I remember this was a corner stamp, and I just thought this was, I love this color, this mint macaron paper. Okay, so I'll go really quickly here because I have I have videos on almost all of these cards, I think. There's a shaker card. These are all Paper Pumpkin kits. That one I didn't finish. There's a pretty card from one of the kits. If you're subscribed to me, you know you've seen these cards all before because I've done videos on them. That's using the back of an envelope flap. This one, I remember my upline, Tina Zink, we had, she used to do this, it was like a fun stamping contest for the members of her group. And she would say like, okay, everybody cut one piece of paper to this size. Okay, now cut out this. And so in the end, after we'd followed her instructions, it was called Mystery Stamping Hour, I think. It was a lot of fun because we'd all follow the instructions, but then we'd all wind up with a card that looked completely different from everybody else's except for the design, like the layout design of the card. So anyway, that was one of the cards I made for that. This was a kit. There's another shaker card, and as you can see, most of the things are stuck to the side. Still not doing very well with shaker cards. There's a card I sort of never finished. I could probably go back and mat a lot of these cards. This is one that I thought was fun. All I did was take pencil crayon and just draw consecutive lines, and then I put a typewriter stamp on top of there. These were made with a kit. Another kit. Okay, this was kits. I think that was a Valentine's kit, like a Be Mine kit. You can go pretty quickly through these because they're all from previous videos that oh, there's a pretty one. I love that one I love when I use this, or anybody uses this velvety ribbon. There's one that that's from I remember I did a video. I love this Best Fishes stamp, so cute. I have a video on that, I remember. That was my favorite Paper Pumpkin kit, when the owner of Paper Pumpkin designed a kit, and it was my favorite. Thanksgiving. I was really making a lot of cards and a lot of videos around this time. That's a pretty Happy Mother's Day one. There's one I used crumpling up the background paper. It was vellum. More. I have so many Mother's Day cards and I only have one mother. So I better get those into plastic and get them into my antique booth. Oh, did somebody give this one to me? Yes, somebody on a Stampin' Up team gave this one to me using one of the Stampin' Up stamps. I don't know how that made it into my pile of cards. Okay, we're in the home run here, or we're in the home stretch. Okay, now this grouping of cards I've made probably within the last year or two, and I just haven't been making videos. I think I did actually film a video for this one, I just haven't got around to editing it. This is a Tim Holtz Biggs die, and I made a typewriter card, which I love. More typewriter cards. Is that the same die? Yeah, that's the same die, with some stamping. This one, I was just playing around with some scraps on my table. This is these are Stamp Market dies. I love Stamp Market. I just love her products. They're so pretty and light and fun and innovative. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this. If you don't know the channel Craft Roulette, please check it out. Every Friday night, Merry Gun Fun that's the lady that runs that channel. She has, so craft roulette, what is, she even has on her channel, they go through a little phase. What is craft roulette? And what it is it's kind of like a game show for card makers. So Mary has on a guest, and then she has a wheel that she spins, kind of like Wheel of Fortune, but the wheel determines what, I think she spins the wheel 4 times, and each time the wheel determines what parameters they will use for the card. So for example, she'll spin the wheel and it will tell them what dimensions they have to use. So it'll have to be a slim line, or it might have to be a 6x6, or it might be a 4x6, or whatever. And then they spin the wheel again, and it might be the theme of the card or whatever. And so anyway, they come up with these exact parameters for a card, and then she and her guest both make a card on screen with a split screen for the next, hour to 2 hours, or however long it takes them. And they have some little fun things they do in between. And then I used to put that on Friday night, and I would sit and make a card with them. And so I was coming up with cards. Once again, it was bringing me back to my days when I first started making cards, of cards that I wouldn't normally make. So this is one, like, there must have been clouds, must have been part of the parameters, and this shape of card was in the parameters. And, I don't know how I came up with this, but it would have been because of the parameters that were set for the card that night. So if you haven't checked that out, go check them out. Craft Roulette. It's a great channel. I was playing around with glitter paste, and I made this Valentine card. This was another one I made on a craft roulette night. One of the parameters would have been like whatever fold this is, like, not gatefold, but there's a name for this anyway. And I love that best fishes sentiment, so I made a best fishes card. This is going back, this is a cool background. You know how I made this? It was with Dina Wakley's gloss sprays. Just a sec, I have them right behind me here. Yes, sorry about that. These gloss sprays, they come out glossy, and as you might imagine by the name. And so anyway, I don't remember what color this was, but I remember I sprayed it, and then I used a Stampin Up embossing folder that had waves, and doesn't that look cool, like the ocean? I just love that. And that's a Stampin Up stamp and punch. Okay, so this is one that I just randomly made one afternoon when I was sitting around in my new craft room, and I just felt like making something. There's the envelope that goes with it. I went to Crop and Create a couple of times. Crop and Create, the in-person event. If you've never heard of it, look it up. It's, you go with, and there's like 200 other people there. And anyway, they gave us, oh darn, I can't think of the name of the company that makes this, but they gave us a set of stamps and dies, and it's just so cute. It's these kitty cats. I just love cats, and so I made this cute card. This was a Studio Calico stamp. This one I also made. When I'm looking at these cards now, I'm thinking to myself, my favorite cards are the ones that I've made for Craft Roulette, because this was another Craft Roulette card. I don't know. I have to start watching that show again. I watched it religiously for a couple of months, and then I just, life, I don't know. I got busy doing something else on Friday nights. This one, I got a new set of alphabet dies, and I just thought it would be neat I used washi tape. Like, I'd put a word down, and then I put washi tape across it, and then I just kind of stuck it on the card and cut it out, and then I just backed it in a different color. This was a Hero Arts. Then I started getting the Hero Arts kit. And this was a kit from last fall, I believe. And I think I made videos. See, I've made a bunch of videos, and I just never got to the point of editing them. So you might see some videos coming up with these cards. This one's out of order. That's from Studio Calico days. Here's another one out of order. Again, that was from Studio Calico days. One night, I think this was another Craft Roulette. That's a Tim Holtz die, and I don't know, I didn't really love that card when I finished it. It's kind of different. I know I have a video for this. And once again, did not edit it. I am great at filming video. I'm great at coming up with ideas. I'm not as great at filming them, and then I'm not as great at actually editing them and putting them out. So these two cards, I know I made a video. Watch, subscribe. I always forget to say that. Please subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll see videos on these cards. Look at how many cards I made with this bee. They're everywhere. This one, I was just using an old stamp set. Also, follow me on Instagram. I have some of my cards on Instagram, and I also sell, like I have an active life other than card making, believe it or not. And I just opened a booth at an antique mall, and I'm planning to sell my cards there. So, oh, this is, I did not make that. Yeah, so follow me on Instagram too, because you can see behind the scenes of my life. This one, I had a little roller thing. It was like a brayer, and I just made this background, and then I used some Dina Wakley stamps to come up with that. Oh, this is a Studio Calico card from a long time ago. And this one, I remember, this was also a video I was going to make about dollar store challenge. I went to the Dollar Tree and I just bought some stuff and I made a card, but once again, I did not film it. And this is out of order. That's from Studio Calico days. So thank you so much. How much? That was 51 minutes. Okay, listen, I thought that was going to be 20 minutes, but there were just too many cards, guys. I couldn't go any slower than that. I wanted to talk about some of these things that I was doing. So presently, I'm signed up for the Hero Arts card kit, because the reason I'm not doing Paper Pumpkin anymore is that I wanted something a little more. I wanted a kit. I really like kits, but I wanted a kit that was a little more substantial, let's say. The Paper Pumpkin kit was fun. I like kits, but I wanted kits with dies and stamps, and what I liked about Stampin' Up card kits was that there was a large group of people using them. And so that's what I like. I like to look at what other people are doing and get inspiration from them and share my cards with them. But the thing about that kit was that it was sort of limiting, because there weren't there weren't dies in the kit. I think now that they are offering dies, but I just decided to use, I move around all the time. Like now at this point, I like the Hero Arts kits, but that may change in the future. I don't know. I am signed up for the next Hero Arts kit, and I have the Valentine's one, which I haven't even started using yet. I was going to start today, but it's getting kind of late. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're still watching at this point, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. That's what everyone says. Thanks. Bye-bye.